there was a kid that had a very thick Liberian accent, and there was another couple of kids that actually a couple of years ago that immigrated from Iraq, right? And so had an Iraqi accent, and I noticed that the other instructors and the other panelists listening to that review found it difficult to understand them, and sometimes basically can't really engage the presentation because of that. Because of my background, my ears have been tuned to hear different accents. So I have to be helping the student explain his project to others, to my colleagues because of that. So and so because they were newly immigrated, they haven't learned the process of code switching, which I had to go through and had to learn. So a lot of times it's not by choice. So it's not about a lack of self-confidence or self-identity. uh, it's the need to really either be respected or be heard and not be judged. And I think we really need to kind of understand that, and some of that has been alluded to. We need to kind of understand that it is about that need to assimilate to culture and be respected, whether you're in school or in the profession. And lastly, the thing I was gonna say is regarding the video that we saw. um, I don't think that video is really, it's a beautiful video, and that happens on in street of New York uh, almost every day. Happens in subway where you see uh, white and black singing together. So for me, my opinion of the video, I don't think it has anything to really do with race, because on a personal level we engage each other. I have white friends, I have white colleagues, and that I love. Right. Sometimes a lot of times the conversations we're having is actually has to do with culture and systems, right? So we need to be able to take the respect and the appreciation we have for each other on a personal level and take it to a global scale to change things. And I'll leave it at that.
If I can jump in. Okay.
Yes,
Can
please.
I? So I'm really interested in the politics of language and accentism. My first interaction, my first, the jarring experience that I had when I first got to the US was when I walked up to this person over the counter in a restaurant and I said, "Can I get water?" And she said, "Huh?" I said, "Water." She said, "Huh?" I said, "Water." She said, "Oh, okay, water. Oh, I got you." So, and I felt, okay, all right. So all of my years of saying water, what do I do with that? Like, really? But there is that side of it. It is not the fault of the person that they don't understand, they can relate. But Wale made what? Wale, am I correct? Wale. So the last
Yeah, you're
speaker,
right. Wale. Yeah.
Wale made mention of that situation where the student, you are the one mediating between the student and then the panelist. I think this is important. Um, the power structure in that situation is that the people on the panel must understand what the speaker is saying. Okay? It is about them. It is not about the speaker. And I think that racism is very interesting in that way. That what if we flipped it the other side? What if the panelists have to listen to what the speaker has to say? Imagine that this speaker is someone who is not a student and someone who has this, who also needed to uh, command some respect. They are the ones who are going to get a translator. Okay, and I think that that is one way that we can upturn and begin to reverse those discourse. That it is not the fault of the person speaking with the thick accent, like we said. No, it is a question on the listening skill of the person who is on the other side. You begin to ask, how is it easy for Wale to understand that and be able to mediate? It is only because he is exposed to both words. And I think that that is important to these intercultural conversations, that people should get more, go out more, listen to other people more. By go out more, I don't mean travel, or listen to other people, And I think that Tokumbo's question, concern is very, very accurate. I remember that there is the idea that in an office, you have to speak in a kind of way to get a certain job. Okay, today when we call um, customer service, we are likely to hear African accent, Asian accent. Okay, that probably wasn't the case at some point. People would say, I don't understand what this person is saying. At that point of language where we can't really get across and go across the bridge, like Mr. Adekbero continues to say, is very important. So I'll just leave it at that. But it's also very, very relevant to understand that Tokumbo is saying that to see yourself being seen, that was what happened to me at that restaurant. I was like, oh, really? That I don't know how to say water. Really? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, can I jump in quickly? Michael, I just want to respond to you. Um, there's a popular pop artist. I mean, there's a pop artist in Nigeria who won a prize or something, and he said something that was very encouraging on stage when he was, he code switched and he talked in his native language. Now, when he said that, it was very peculiar to me. It's very, very easy for people in the Western world to pronounce Tchaikovsky, but they cannot pronounce Oduduwa or water in the same way that you were saying it. Is it not a form of discrimination? I know that's a bit hard, but the listening ear should be able to hear all aspects of language. If you really want to be respectful of the person that you are talking to and communicating with. If I, as a Nigerian, can understand what an Irish person is saying, or what a Scotsman is saying, or what an Australian is saying, even with all their dialects, because I have attuned my listening acumen to try and hear them and respectfully understand where they are. Shouldn't we ask the same thing of people of other cultures to listen to us in the context that we are in? Is it not natural for us to do that? And by, by inference, you are in University of Wisconsin, and I understand that your faculty had been even founded even before Nigeria was independent, before we gained independence in Nigeria. That is way beyond the 1960s. Doesn't that show that there's some cultural relevance for the languages? And shouldn't the Western world, or for that matter, people everywhere in the world respect that attenuation? Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that we are on the same page on a number of issues. I Even for those accents that I am not familiar with, there is a lot of cognitive work that I put into that communication situation to listen, to decipher. And I think you're right when you say we should demand the same, we should exercise some reciprocity in that light. But we will have to factor in a number of things, some of which I've said, particularly about the power dynamic. What does the American who doesn't understand, who has never heard Yoruba before, what does he or she have to lose by not learning it? Well, flip that. What do I have to lose if I cannot understand my boss, who is maybe Russian, when they speak? Okay, what is the power play? The power dynamic is important here.
I'd like to say that I agree with
I
you,
may add real quick to that.
Michael. Oh,
Well,
sorry. Sorry.
if I may add to that, right? You know, we're having this conversation in right now. We're talking about Nigerians and Americans, right? I am not a Nigerian, and there are many times when some people in this audience who happen to be my friends have had me try to say a Yoruba word, and they'll laugh. Now, and part of it is it's genuinely because I don't know how to say it very well. As a matter of fact, um, um, Demi Lade, I've been having a hard time getting her name right. And it's because, and part of it has to do with the fact that because I don't understand the language, I'm not actually appreciating the fact that saying Demi versus Dami has a different meaning. Now, when I get that, the way I say the name becomes different. But you know why I get to that place? I get to that place because I truly want to say the name correct. And then I got to actually ask, well, what is the difference between Demi and Danny? So that I could say it right. Because before then, they sounded very close, very similar to me. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because when we talk about languages and when we talk about how other people have to enunciate and say things in order to be accepted, it goes multiple ways. It is interracial, it is intercultural, it is African to Africans, etc. In fact, Michael, the scenario you had, I had the very same situation happen to me when I first moved to the United States in New Jersey. And I was going to go get water. And I asked African American lady, can I have some water? And she's looking at me funny. I mean, genuinely looking at me funny. And I'm like, eventually I had to like point to it. And then she said, oh, you mean water? I mean, I had no idea that water sounds so different from water. And I just did that. So I think there's a sensitivity about languages, but to your point, I in that case had to adjust different. And up till today, I can't quite say water quite right because I just can't. I try, but I just can't. But I think it's a part of this testimony to um, languages and engaging in what is being done in a dominant culture. I could say the same thing if I was a Peace Corps. Well, I'm not a Peace Corps, but I've worked with Peace Corps. You go to other places and they find out that, listen, no one's going to have a clue of what they're saying. So they don't make the effort to try to say things in that in the language that's been spoken where they're working. Right? So I just sort of wanted to kind of share that and get some of your thoughts again from a language, culture perspective, and how to have this integration that we're talking about that we want to kind of reimagine.
And sorry to jump in, but I take myself as an example, and what Michael said about the power play is very important. I'm a Nigerian doctor. I live in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is very racial and culturally diverse, actually, but it's very social, economically demarcated. It depends on what social class you're in, if you're white collar, blue collar, red collar, whatever color you are. So I have my patients coming in and they say something like, oh, doctor, I don't think I can ever learn to say your name. And I say, no, just look at it. It's got 3 syllables. It's got a few consonants and a few vowels. Let's go together. Let's go. O, ku, la, ja. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 syllables. Done. Oh, that's easy. I'm like, yep, it's as easy as that. And I find out that one of the reasons why people bulk at that is just like Adiolu said, Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky. I know Tchaikovsky because I did ballet when I was in grade school, and we had to dance to Tchaikovsky and Wagner and all those things. I learned it along with Oriko Sola, Nkan, you know, things like that. So I actually think that foreigners in this country who are dealing with people who are of a different ethnicity, we are at an advantage. We have the opportunity to teach people, and we have to be open. And just to let you know, Yone, we laugh at ourselves too. You know, like the day I was teaching Demilade to say good night. Oh my goodness. Good night in Nigerian, in Yoruba language is Odaro. She said things from Odaro to Odaro to Odaro, you know, and all those things mean different things. There's good night, there's it has become lame, you know, so nuances. So we have to be willing to teach. And sometimes when we see these things happen, it's not that we're laughing at you. We would do the same thing to myself. Like, for example, I'm trying to speak my own native dialect, and my dad would laugh at me. It's just the African thing to do, you know, just accept it like that, or the Nigerian thing to do. But with our people, and I say our people because everybody's our people, Polish, Swiss, American, Hispanic, we just have to teach. I have this joke when I'm on the phone and they say, what's your name? I say, Ade Perokulaja. They say, spell that. I'll say T-H-A-T. I did exactly what you asked me to do. I spelled that, T-H-A-T. Say, what? Say, please ask me to spell my name. And my name is Ade Pero. I'll spell it and then I'll go on. So it's that saying, in that interaction, I'm saying, respect me, respect my name, and ask for my name respectfully. I'm not fighting you, but if you ask me, spell that, I'll say T-H-A-T. And then they'll say, what? And I say, well, you wanted me to spell T-H-A-T. Do you want me to spell my name? And yes, so anyways, that's what I've got in terms of that we have to be in that position to want to teach all the time and not assume that people are not wanting to learn about us, because we can have those assumptions too. You know, and it's the same thing with African American names. The other day, I saw a patient, I saw someone, not a patient, whose name was Jamaica, but it was spelled Jamaica. So I said, hello, Miss Jamaica. She said, oh, actually, it's Jamaica. And I had to respect that. I said, okay, Jamaica. It's new to me. I don't understand it, but that's the way it is. It's Jamaica. So we have to give people that respect and then keep the doors open to teach and not assume that they don't want to learn. And those that don't want to learn, gently coach them into that learning mode.
Well, I want to again add to what everybody else has said, because this is an intellectual discussion of people with intellect who have traveled and been exposed to different types of people, different cultures, and everybody here speaks multiple languages and dialects. I want to dummy it down because you are presupposing that the audience that you're dealing with even understands this. Let me give you two examples. When my son was about 6 years old, he went to summer camp. As a working mom, you know, I tried to make sure my kids had childcare and went to every program so that I could work. And the counselors came on the J1 visas, which some of you might have come in on once upon a time, especially as a Fulbright. And the J1 counselors all had accents because they came from another country. And I think that year my son's counselor was from Sweden or Norway. And the other little boys are saying, I don't understand him. He talks funny. And my son was just looked at them and said, he's from another country. It's a different language. And he knew that as a little boy, enough to correct these suburban white kids who had never been exposed to anything. My husband is a cardiologist, and his practice prior to his retirement a few months ago was located in Northeast Philadelphia, which is part of Philadelphia proper. Ade knows that well from her time once upon a time in pre-Minnesota, pre-Wisconsin. And the patient population there, even though Northeast Philadelphia is Philadelphia, most people in Northeast Philadelphia have not even gone to downtown Philadelphia. Their biggest travel in their entire lifetime is going to New Jersey, but not to a museum, but going to the Jersey Shore, where they're with all the neighbors on their same block, and they've been for generations. And my husband came as a physician from Kentucky, and he does a great Kentucky accent, by the way, because he was raised there. He's good at being able to switch back to y'all once he sets foot in the South, and it's a legitimate accent. But he was shocked when he said to me, they don't understand. They don't know where Kentucky is. They certainly don't understand where another country is, what an accent is. So you're saying that that's a power play. In some cases it is, but it's in America, sadly, and I hate using this word, but I can't think of a better word to describe it. It's sheer ignorance. It's sheer arrogance that what they've learned, how they've grown up in their small proverbial environment is all there is of the world. And sometimes when that person offering you water and you're not pronouncing it correctly as far as they're concerned, try pop and soda and things like that, a whole different language too, then you're the first time that they've traveled outside of their neighborhood and what they know. So I agree with Ade's way of teaching them. And again, everything to me goes back to the fear or the lack of understanding, or in this case, lack of exposure to differences. And I remember, again, what we used to do with when my kids were little, we would throw them in the Winnebago with the boogie boards on top, and we would head south to Myrtle Beach, to Kiwa. And because I speak fluent Spanish, and because many of my clients are Spanish speaking and they pick tobacco and different crops, we were in a McDonald's. My kids spoke a little Spanish at that point. And there was like a 19-year-old girl, maybe 18-year-old local in a tiny town in North Carolina. And she was at the cash register, and I put in my orders for the hamburgers, and the kids were waiting. And she was lovely to me, but you could tell that she wasn't terribly educated. So as we were waiting for the order, I saw a bunch of young Mexican kids, and I was really curious. What were they doing there? What crop were they picking? So I just started speaking to them in Spanish and asking them, and they taught me a lot about what was going on in North Carolina. I explained I work with the Mexican consulate in Philadelphia. When I went to pick up my order, and I probably pronounced it wrong because I say order, I'm from New York, but I'm sure all of you say it very different ways. This young woman who was so nice to me, her face was red and swollen and nasty because I was speaking Spanish. And that must have meant that I was Hispanic. And she didn't like Hispanics. But instead of looking at me and thinking and opening up her mind and saying, oh, you were speaking Spanish. Where are you from? How did you learn it? There's this lack of curiosity. And it wasn't a power play, but she reacted with anger. Again, I think premised in fear or founded in fear because I was doing something different than what she had learned. So when you have somebody who's filled with the hatred of the differences, which is really different than somebody who says, I can't pronounce your name because they lack the education, the exposure, or the knowledge. And then you teach them how to do that. And that's like a tiny little step in acculturating them to the global differences, a baby step, if you will.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's enlightening. So we have done a lot of talking. I think, Pastor Yone, we have one person's hand up, Ngozi, and then we have to start rounding up the session.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, by the way, great conversations, and I agree. I think these engagements are really important, and I think part of maybe as we talk about it is also just to look at some of it in context, because everything that has been said is true, but they're all different contexts. Because there's also the context of the calibration of things as crude and some things as refined. So for example, if you watch, I'm a fan of Food Network, I like to watch it, I like to engage it. When they talk of French cuisine, for example, they'll say it's refined palates, refined food. When they talk about African, they talk about how it's very strong flavors and ethnic, and it's not, they're not saying ethnic in a way that is necessarily bad, but they're also saying that it's very heavy. Basically it's not refined. In fact, I was watching when one of the guys who was over it was saying that something more refined was more appropriate to this particular dinner, and the word refined naturally implies better. So I think that we have to look at these conversations in context. When you have platform, when you are educated, you have a lot more latitude, because you're not really like what Dr. Okulaja was saying, you're not really kowtowing to anybody, you're doing what you need to do to reach people, and it's genuine. But people who don't have a but there are also situations where it is a complete power play. It is, I don't understand you. I work with a guy who we're doing a deal together, and the first time he said, oh, I don't even understand what you're saying. And I knew there was a way to shut me down. The next time we're talking, I told him, I don't understand what you're saying. But because he needed me so much, he started understanding everything I was saying. So it's just the idea that if I have more power, because he first thought I was going to need him, then I'll behave a certain way. And if I don't, and then I was talking of the refined versus crude conversation. That's why Tchaikovsky sounds sophisticated and great. But to say Okulaja now sounds like the hardest thing on the world, because it's not, and I'm not, in her circumstance, it's different, but I'm saying we have to look at these conversations in context, because sometimes it really is that. And it's something we shouldn't be the ones always trying to fix. We should really figure out how to not just call it out, but how to create a different understanding to people who behave that way, to say, no, African cooking is refined. It's as beautiful as it gets. And French cooking can also be refined. It says, when one is not refined and the other one is crude. It's, so that's just what I wanted to share. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very, very, very much. I mean, I know we went a little off what the planned agenda was in some ways, but in doing so, I think we're accomplishing more than what we could have accomplished if we stuck to the agenda. So we appreciate all of your contribution here. I know that some of us have got to leave at the top of the hour, and Michael, who is one of our panelists, does have another appointment that we knew beforehand. We were hoping that this was going to be a 2-hour conversation, and it's gone on for almost 3 hours. But again, we do really, really much appreciate his being here with us and sharing some of his thoughts, and we appreciate those from the other panelists as well. I know we also had a video that we want to have everyone have a copy of, and so I'm going to just turn it over to Adeolu now to talk a little bit about Saro, maybe a little bit of the context of that, share the link to the video, and then we can begin to wrap up the session. But again, Michael, thank you much for spending some time with us this morning in this conversation. And when we do have the next one, I hope you'll be gracious enough to join us, because I think this is the beginning of many. Over to you, Adeolu. I think you're mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying it's been a great it's been a great time. We've had fantastic conversations, and like we said at the beginning, this is the first. in a series of conversations that we'll be having. And I know that there's a lot to learn and also unlearn. If Pastor, you may, you can go to the slide so I can show people. I'll be sharing the details of a gift that we want to gift the viewership of a theater production by Terra Culture in Lagos, Nigeria. So we're going to show a short clip of that presentation to you, and I have shared the link online. So just copy it and feel free to watch it in your spare time. Okay, so that production was curated from the theater Terra Culture. It's a multi-award winning outfit. One of our speakers today, she's the CEO, was supposed to come on board today, but for some technical difficulties, she could not be here. She's currently in the UK, and I'm sure maybe sometime in the future we'll be able to bring her on board and have a dialogue with her. But that presentation actually speaks volumes. It's about the dynamics of living in Lagos, Nigeria, and it's a very, very interesting production that I'll encourage everybody to watch. It speaks to the cultures within the culture of Nigeria. Nigeria is a hotspot of languages, and by watching that movie or that theater production, you'll be able to travel, as Wendy would say, to those locations and really experience what it is like to be in Nigeria in some sort. It's but it's very, very enriching. So I would encourage everybody to watch it. I have posted the link. Please watch it and let me know whether you have that link. Do you have the link? Does everybody have the link?
Yes, it's on there.
Okay, so that will be available to you within the week. So please take time to watch it, and you can have your feedback. And please like when you are there, and you can send messages to the production. So I think what is the next agenda now? I think we have gone through the experiences. If there are any other experiences that anybody wants to share quickly so that we can take that up.
I'd just like to suggest that we all access the link and then copy it and save it somewhere, because you can't really copy it from the chat. So if you click on the link, it'll take you to the Vimeo site, and then you can then bookmark it. Otherwise, you might lose the link. Just a suggestion.
Yes, otherwise you might lose the link. So if you do that, that will be fantastic. Thank you, sis, for that. So if we don't have any other experiences that we want to share, I think we should just go down to the next slide that we have, which would be our closing. Pastor, could you share the slide? You're muted, I can't hear you. Okay. So in the context of all that we have been discussing, I think what seems to speak true is that we need to listen louder than we speak. I would want each of the speakers to please just say a line or two to this and to let us know whether they agree with this or not. And then I would continue by closing. So I'll go with Wendy first, then Dr. Okulaja following, and then Michael at the end of it. So Wendy, over to you.
I think I'll keep with this is the first time that that they've traveled portion. There are different ways to listen. Listen to words. And you can also listen to body language. And using your background, because everybody here comes from an intellectual, analytic background, look at the person in front of you. Make a judgment, it won't always be right, and figure out how can you make them listen so that when you've spent a moment with them, you've really changed their lives and taught them to listen a little bit more so that when you speak, they will know who you are and be willing to hear who you are and not drown you out because they don't understand who you are. That would be how I would end it.
Dr. O, over to you.
Dr. Okulaja, if you please. So, and even the way I say my name is actually not the way it is. My name is Dr. Okulaja. So maybe from learning about everything, from learning from everyone today, I'm not going to say my name is Dr. Okulaja anymore. I'm going to say my name is Dr. Okulaja, and I will teach you how to speak my name and how to enunciate my name properly. And so my key, the key point that I'm taking away from all this conversation, which has been, by the way, and extremely enriching, and this program has actually exceeded my expectations in many ways. I thank Wendy, I thank Michael, and I thank everyone who's been here. I've learned a lot from y'all. That's my southern part coming out. I learned a lot from y'all. But my takeaway point, my go home with point is, be comfortable in your own authenticity and aim to build bridges. Be comfortable in your own authenticity, aim to build bridges, and make no assumptions. Make no assumptions. I'm a storyteller, so I'm just going to end with a little story from my time in church in Wisconsin. I attended a mid-sized congregation, and I would see this woman just look at me weird every Sunday. She would just stare at me, and I tell my friends, "This woman is racist. Look at her. She's just looking at me. She's just racist. Why? Why does she have to stare at me?" And then one day, after church, she comes up to me with a bouquet of 12 beautiful red roses, and she hands this bouquet to me, and she says to me, "Addie, You must have seen me watching you over the last few Sundays. I'm not a creeper and I'm not a stalker, but I just admire you so much. I see you every Sunday and you're so beautiful and you're such a wonderful person. And I just want to appreciate you and gave me this bouquet of roses. She was not racist. She was just curious. And I've been fortunate to have many of such experiences. And, in being authentic, building bridges, not making assumptions, we also have to know our power and use that power to do good. And that's what I would leave here with. Thank you so very much. You've all been wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so I had something in mind, but the last statement reminds me of very important point. Things are so messed up culturally in terms of our cultural experiences that your knee-jerk response reaction to somebody being nice is, I hope that why are they fake? Why are they, faking it, or why are they, being too nice? We have got to that point where someone comes to me as an African, if a few of my reactions will be, okay, so, all right, well, then you take your time to see how that goes. And I think that is important. But to Mrs. Adigbero's question, that we should listen more, give chance. But my original impression is to say that, going back to what the singer in that video says, it is not what is said, it is how you listen. I think that is just, that's one of my takeaways for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to just end with this statement. It's mine, totally mine, and I take full responsibility for it. I think at this point, we must reimagine the future we want for ourselves. Let's listen loud. Let's listen clear. Let's speak. Let's have real dialogues that improve the collective narrative of who we are. And I think there's no other way to say it than that. I'd like to appreciate everyone that has made this event a success and has been instrumental to making this happen. I hope we have been inspired by our own conversations to reimagine a new future for ourselves. I want to thank Pastor Yone for all those conversations we had at the beginning of when we wanted to start this idea of having these conversations. And I also want to thank my sister also for being there. We may also need to reimagine a new conversation that we need to have within ourselves because we are one. And I also want to thank Wendy for being open and being available, because in the short time I had a conversation with her, I knew she was open and she was inviting. And that is why she's here today. And she has given so much of her time to making this happen also. And for all the other people that have joined in, it's the beginning of something that I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I know that it has legs. And I know that we would continue to work on it and to perfect it in all its forms. We housed this discussion in the church, which is Regents Assembly in Minnesota, because we basically felt that was the best place to have it. Not in the sense that we couldn't call it anything by any form, but because Christianity on its own welcomes everybody in any race, in any color, and in any form. The Lord Himself welcomes us all, however we are. And I think it is in that spirit that that was done. So I want to thank everybody again, and I thank you immensely for your time. So I hand over to Pastor Yonette to say a few words also, and do the closing. Thank you so much.
I don't have too much else to add to that. I mean, I think we had a very good conversation. I believe that the intent and the objective of this dialogue was met for us to talk, for us to exchange ideas. We all come from different places. We all have what is known as our own unconscious biases, and one of the ways to deal with it best is to talk, right? And in talking, also being able to listen to what others are saying. So it's good to talk, but it's also very, very, very good to listen. And it's really good to listen with our hearts, not just with our eyes. And the last thing I'll say as we round up is a story that I was told of a little kid who came up to her dad when the dad was reading the newspaper, and she goes, "Daddy, Daddy," and dad says, "Yes, I'm listening to you." And she keeps talking, and she says, "Daddy, are you listening to me?" And he says, "Yes, I'm listening to you." And then she says, "Daddy, I want you to listen to me with your eyes." So in other words, she's saying that don't just say you're listening, engage in listening, because in the engagement, we're able to process through what the other person is saying. So it's good to talk, but it's really also very good to listen. And I appreciate all of us who are listening to one another today. And, we look forward to the continuation of the conversation. So thank you again for coming. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So
Bye-bye, everyone.
we would end this session. And we have all your details for those who registered. And in the not too distant future, we'll be emailing you with hopefully the recording of this session so that you can have it and watch it again if you wish, and also with some more information on what we'll be doing for the future. The future is bright, and we know that we are on our road to imagining a better future for ourselves, and to communicate more, to learn how to live together as different individuals with different backgrounds, and a lot of other things that are happening also. So thank you all, and have a fantastic day ahead.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.